This is the Yorkshire Voice Newscast, brought to you by Leeds Trinity University.
Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of the Yorkshire Voice Newscast. I'm your host, Noah Hoffman, and as ever, I'll be bringing you all the latest news and views from across the region. We've got a great show coming up today. To kick things off, I'll be giving you a rundown of today's national headlines. Then I'll be chatting to Yorkshire Voice's very own political correspondent, Thomas Wootton, about Thursday. Can't begin to imagine what's happening then. It's only local elections, regional mayor elections, elections for PCCs, and we can't forget really important national elections coming up in Scotland, in Holyrood, and in Wales for the Senedd in Cardiff. Also today, our reporter Jess Bailey will be interviewing a Bradford primary school principal, Luke Robbins-Ross, about his pupils' involvement in a song raising funds for burns victims, a very important cause. And finally, we ask, what is Yorkshireness to you? Not sure why there's an Australian hosting this segment, but there we go. Now, before moving on to elections, it's worth mentioning that, yes, today is May the 4th, an informal commemorative day for the Star Wars film franchise. However, I, for one, am not a sci-fi fan or a fantasy fan, and I really do not care about Star Wars. So that will be the last time May the 4th is mentioned on the podcast today. So over to today's lunchtime headlines. The government says it looks forward to encouraging more visiting and trips out for care home residents in the future as coronavirus rules are relaxed in England. Those in a home can now go for a walk or visit a loved one's garden without having to self-isolate. 2 people are seriously injured after an explosion caused a fire at a house in Kent. Another 5 people have been taken to hospital after it happened in Willesborough in Ashford this morning. The Indian government insists coronavirus cases are slowing down after recording more than 355,000 daily cases. It brings the total to more than 20 million, but there are questions about the systems used to monitor the figures, especially in remote parts of the country, some of which are worst hit. And children are among the 23 people who've died after an overpass collapsed in Mexico City. It forced a train to split in 2, leaving it hanging over a road. Now on to elections, and election fever is in the air with just 2 days to go until the public take to the polls. And here on the Yorkshire Voice Newscast, we'll be unpacking just what exactly is set to go down on Thursday. So I'm so delighted to be joined now by our political correspondent, Thomas Wootton, an expert on all things elections. Thank you for joining us, Thomas.
Thanks for having me, Noah.
So, Thomas, first things first, what exactly are people voting for on Thursday?
Well, nationally, as you said at the beginning, in Scotland, they'll be voting for their Parliament members, as well as the Welsh Assembly will be voting on that. We've also got the by-election in Hartlepool that we've all heard about in the news. And like any other local election, we have local councillors across the region. And also different to this year, we will also be electing our first West Yorkshire mayor.
Yes, and we'll come on to that in a moment. So very exciting. So much democracy in action. Let's make sure we get involved because we are so lucky to be living in a democracy. Not everyone in the world has that privilege. So please do make sure you go out and vote for whoever you want to give your vote to, but just do it. Go out and vote. Now, obviously, coronavirus restrictions have eased, but we are still living in the COVID era and life isn't completely back to normal. So, Thomas, I'm wondering, how are COVID rules around areas like hygiene and social distancing going to affect the process of going to the polls on Thursday?
Well, one of the biggest differences is the change in locations of some of the voting stations. Usually you'd be able to go to the local care home and elderly residency to vote, but obviously due to the vaccines to ensure their safety, as well as the safety of the election staff, polling staff and the electorate themselves, some of the locations have changed, which means some of the electorate will have to be going a little bit longer in their distance in order to vote if they wish to do so in person. Of course, they're more than free to vote by proxy or to get their postal votes in. Today's the last day to ensure that it will reach the polling counting staff, although they can go to the polling stations on the day and hand in their vote in a sealed envelope. Obviously, when people turn up on election day at the polling stations, they'll be expected to maintain the 2-metre social distancing, may lead to very long queues in order to vote. Inside, you're expected to obviously be wearing face masks. You will be expected to routinely wash your hands with hand sanitizer, and you're expected to bring your own pens and pencils to ensure and in order to minimise the impact and spread of COVID on that day.
Yeah, that is going to feel very different, especially the bring your own pencil situation, as we were discussing earlier on in the Yorkshire Voice newsroom. And it's interesting because local elections in general traditionally do have a lower turnout, and I think it remains to be seen, on top of that traditionally low turnout, what effect COVID has on people getting out and getting to the polls. So that will be one to keep an eye out on. Now, on Thursday, voters, for the first time, as we have mentioned, will have the opportunity to elect a West Yorkshire mayor, which is very exciting. 7 candidates have put themselves forward for the role. They are Reform UK candidate Waj Ali, Labour candidate Tracy Brabin, Yorkshire Party candidate Bob Buxton, Green Party candidate Andrew Cooper, Lib Dem candidate Stuart Galton, English Democrats candidate Theresa Hurst, and Conservative candidate Matt Robinson. Thomas, as things stand, who are the front runners in the race for West Yorkshire Mayor?
Well, the polls and also the betting odds all indicate that the Labour candidate, Tracy Brabin, is the favourite in order to win the West Yorkshire mayor elections, closely followed behind by the Conservatives candidate, Matt Robinson. And then all the rest of the parties have a shot, but not a very good shot at winning. It might be the case where the electorate is a bit annoyed and basically just a little bit frustrated with the main parties, so they might decide to go down the route of electing one of the smaller parties, but it seems very unlikely at the moment.
Yeah, well, so maybe perhaps a less exciting race than some of the other ones that are more tight and held in the balance. And speaking of tight election races, we'll look a bit further north and to the east, over to Hartlepool, where there is a very close by-election race happening there. A shock poll by Survation for Good Morning Britain on ITV this morning put Conservative candidate Jill Mortimer well ahead of the pack at 50%. Meanwhile, Paul Williams for Labour is on 33%. Independent Thelma Walker is on 6%. Independent Sam Lee is on 6%. Rachel Featherstone for the Greens is on 3%. Andrew Hagan for the Liberal Democrats is on 1%. And John Prescott for Reform UK is on 1%. Now, obviously, this is only one poll, and the Tories themselves have been engaging in some expectations management over the by-election. They don't want to big themselves up too much because that could come back to bite them should things go sour. But Thomas, why would a Tory win in Hartlepool be so significant? And what would it tell us about the current political zeitgeist within red wall seats?
Well, the thing with this by-election in Hartlepool in particular is that when the constituency was created as the Hartlepool constituency in 1974, it used to be the constituency of the Hartlepools before then, and it actually did have some Conservatives in the 60s. But ever since it became the constituency of Hartlepool in 1974, it's been regarded as a Labour safe seat. They've always won it since then, with fairly comfortable gains. But it looks like like you said, from the recent polling, that actually the Conservatives might have a chance in order to win, pull off a surprise win in this by-election area. Equally, of course, one of the third parties might clinch it as well, but it seems likely it'll be either a Labour or Conservative victory. The reason why it's probably one of the biggest things for the Conservatives, and in particular Labour, is because in the case of by-elections, before general elections, they're usually a big indicator of how the electorate is feeling towards the two main parties. With the polling and the current electorate, there's certainly a mood of they're not voting for Labour. They don't want to vote for the Tories, but they're doing so probably in relation to not only Labour's current position and obviously the scandals and the infighting within Labour itself. Obviously, national policies like the vaccine rollout, which while initially might not have been successful, really ramped up under the Conservatives, and that will also play a key factor in it. And with regards to this, it's like I said, it was a key safe seat for Labour. and it makes up part of the Red Wall, which we just recently saw collapse in the recent election, with the Conservatives breaking through and managing to make headway into some seats that they've never done before. The Red Wall is the sort of the invincible, hard-working class voter in electorate for Labour in the north, and to see that collapse, in order to the Hartlepool itself in the local elections, it will really indicate whether or not Labour can maintain or has maintained the support amongst those hard-working northern electorate, or whether or not this will indicate that actually they may be in for not just only a ruling in the local elections, but in the upcoming general election itself. And of course, depending on how this goes, it could very well see a coup launched against Keir Starmer to remove his leadership. He might be seen as ineffective and incompetent, depending whether or not the results are. And it could, there's some commentators who are saying that potentially it could be very damaging for Labour in the general election coming up in 2024.
Yeah, well, it remains to be seen, because Keir Starmer was looking, slightly, I don't know if hopeless is the word, but he was looking a bit down and doing the media rounds this morning. But then we've also got, we don't know how offended people will feel on behalf of John Lewis and various other furniture outlets, and also about some real distasteful comments to do with COVID deaths. So, I mean, there's skeletons in all the different closets, and it remains to be seen what effect those various skeletons have. But just one quick question for you now, Thomas, looking over to Scotland. The SNP, according to a poll this morning, are looking on track to form a majority only, just with Labour and the Conservatives and other parties contesting seats in the Holyrood elections, trailing behind. What implications would an SNP majority have for the union?
Well, actually, the Scotland is very interesting, particularly in relation to, as you said, the union. Obviously, we've seen the recent developments in the DUP in Northern Ireland, which has threatened the union, with obviously Eileen Foster being forced out of her position. In Scotland, something similar may occur. Like you said, it does look like the SNP might pull off a straight, simple majority. Currently, they're having to rely upon the Greens in order to pass things through, as they're the only other sort of pro-independence party within the Scottish Parliament. In terms of the union, if they win, it might give them if they win by a majority, it might give them a mandate to go to the government and say, look, we want another independence referendum. This is what the people want. But recent polling has seen that sort of support for independence narrowing and decreasing amongst the electorate. It doesn't seem like something that they're really supportive of. And I think this probably comes in relation to current sort of the national developments, both in the comparison between Scotland's handling of the coronavirus and the vaccine programme rollout in comparison to England, where it's been slightly more successful. But I think the really bigger thing is for Sturgeon and the SNP is the recent debacle over the whole Salmond inquiry into investigation into his sexual assault allegations while he was First Minister. Accusations of collusion, of talking during the investigation between Sturgeon and him while there was an ongoing investigation. That seems to be like the biggest thing that will definitely play a part in how the Scottish Parliament elections run. It seems, we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. He might pick up support and maybe even seats in Parliament for his new Alba party that may deprive her of her majority. But currently, it seems likely that she will either win out an outright majority, or she'll be forced to do what she's currently doing, which is relying upon the Greens in order to keep the government afloat.
Thomas, thank you so much for joining us. Insightful as always. Big day of politics coming up on Thursday, and at the Yorkshire Voice Newscast, we cannot wait, and we will bring you all the action on that day. Thank you again, Thomas. Right, moving on now to a nice little wholesome story. Ahead of the 36th anniversary of the Bradford City fire on May 11th, a charity cover single has been released to raise money for the Bradford Burns Unit, a burns research facility at Bradford University. A new version of You'll Never Walk Alone, a song with a long historical connection to football, has been composed by Bradford musicians and lifelong Bantam supporters Andy Ruddy and David Novakovsky. Now, some of the voices featured on the track belong to school pupils, and those are school pupils at Dixon's Music Primary School in Bradford. Our reporter Jess Bailey caught up with Luke Robbins-Ross, the principal of Dixon's Primary, and just kicked off her conversation with Luke by asking him why he wanted his school to get involved with the project in the first place.
So it was really important for us to get involved in this memorial fundraiser. Obviously, as a school in inner city Bradford, we want to make sure that we're involved in as much sort of community action as possible, and it sort of resonated with us. We've got children that currently play for Bradford City Academy, and it was something that we felt that was really important to raise the vital funds for the BINS research unit in Bradford.
Yeah, and obviously it adds a little bit of a different perspective having children involved, because obviously it's quite a serious thing and it's something that's quite a sensitive subject for many people. And obviously as a teacher and head teacher, your job's quite focused on the next generation. So why do you think it's so important that even the younger children are getting involved and learning about things that are quite sensitive and quite serious, and in making, like, raising money towards helping people?
I think the first of all, the victims, there's a certain element of making sure that they're always remembered, and that this was a significant event before many of our students, and indeed maybe some of their own parents were born, and it's something that we need to constantly make sure that we're raising awareness of sort of the history of our city, and sort of building that cultural capital in our students, so they're aware, and that this is something that is really important for all of our students in school.
Yeah, obviously teaching them a lot about what's going on, especially in the area. How did the children enjoy it? Obviously, it's a difficult thing to enjoy, but producing and being involved in something like this.
So yeah, the project was something for them to focus on coming out of lockdown and what's been a difficult year really over the past 12 months, and it's something that they knew that was contributing to something really positive, and I think that just sort of spurred them on to making sure that they could do it to the best of their ability, and the rehearsal process and putting the final edits together. It was an experience that obviously they're not going to forget, and it's something that will hopefully resonate with them for years to come, and they can pass on to their own children.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be something that they'll remember forever, and I think it'll be something that a lot of people will remember this single for a long time to come, and like you say, keep raising awareness for the tragedy that it was.
Absolutely.
How did the school come to be involved in this project?
So we participated in the Song for Yorkshire competition, and the outcome of that was sort of making links with organisations, and we were actually approached by the person producing this record via the Welcome to Yorkshire chief executive, who sort of put us into contact, and so that they thought this would be a really useful project, a really sort of a project that would align with us, and it sort of came from there. And I think it's obviously us being a Bradford school, it made that link seamless and something that we could really sort of put our energy into. Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense to keep it local, and obviously children that may know their parents may know people who are involved.
Absolutely.
We spoke to the CEO of Welcome to Yorkshire the other day, and he was lovely.
James. So
that was really nice. So do you think you'll do something like this again? Obviously, you've mentioned how yourself and the children involved have taken something from this and realised the importance and understood the longevity of what it is that you've been involved in. Do you think you'll do something similar to this in the future?
I do. I think for us, it's music is a key part of our culture in school, and it's extremely powerful in terms of raising awareness and drawing attention to sort of important events and topics. We've got things in the pipeline for sort of fundraising events over the next couple of months, and music is going to play an important part of that, and definitely in terms of the Bradford element, anything that we can do to raise awareness and make sure that things aren't forgotten, and build the cultural capital in our students, we definitely want to be involved.
Yeah, definitely. And so obviously this is something that's very important, and as you say, it was something that you're very keen to be involved with. And what would be the main thing that you'd want people, not just the children, but the children as well, but also people listening to the single, buying the single, to take from that?
Obviously, we feel that the cover is an emotional sort of a touching cover of a really iconic song, and we want people to make those links and really raise those vital funds for the Bradford's Plastic Surgery and Burns Research Unit. And I think it's something that will offer a reflection of the tragedy in 1985, and that's what we want people to really sort of have in the forefront of their mind of the good that they're doing for the unit, and obviously reflecting on the people who unfortunately were affected by the fire.
Yeah, I think it'll do that for sure, because obviously the children are going to remember it. It's another way, as you say, to raise awareness.
Yes.
Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, we just want as many people as possible, not just across Bradford or Yorkshire, but beyond, to really sort of promote this, and let's get a really brilliant figure raised for such an important thing.
Yeah, I think that's the sentiments across the board, and it's really amazing to be able to get children involved in that. And yeah, I'm sure it's something that a lot of people are going to take notice of, and it, like I say, adds a different perspective hearing younger children's voices on it. Well, yeah, it's been great speaking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day.
Jess Bailey reporting there. For our final segment of the podcast, we're going to be talking all things Yorkshireness. The term encompasses so much to so many people, and that is why an online survey is seeking a more specific understanding of the term. The Yorkshire Society, a non-political and not-for-profit organisation, are asking members of the public to answer 12 questions, which they hope will enable them to get to the bottom of what Yorkshireness really entails. With the help of Hull University, the Yorkshire Society also hopes the survey will trigger a wide-ranging discussion about the future of the region. I'm joined now by 23-year-old Leeds resident Riccardo Trono. Now, Riccardo grew up in Italy before moving to Manchester for university, where he spent 4 years, and he's now living in Yorkshire, where he's been for almost a year, I would say. Enough time to become accustomed to the Yorkshire way of life, while still being able to look at it from an outsider's perspective. Riccardo, welcome to the Yorkshire Voice Newscast.
Thank you very much, Noah, for introducing me as a Yorkshire connoisseur. I mean, I didn't know that I was one until you told me this morning. So,
it's an honour to bestow this title upon you.
Thank you.
Riccardo, when I say the word Yorkshireness, what comes to mind for you?
Okay, so let me begin by apologizing to our listeners and saying that my sense of geographical positioning isn't the best. My first episode relating to Yorkshire was when I came to Horsforth in October, in the wake of, like you said, 4 years in Manchester, and I got to know my flatmate. And when I asked him where he was from, he said, "I'm from Huddersfield," and I wrongly suggested that. So I basically told him, "So you're from Greater Manchester." So, and he, severely reprimanded me because of that, like to use euphemistic terms. But now, like, I have to say that I'm growing better now. as a cheese lover, coming from Italy, I'm impressed by, I'm becoming ever more fascinated by the variety of cheese, they have on offer here, and they are of very high quality. So I'm becoming ever more interested in them. And, like Yorkshire tarts are very famous. I had the opportunity to try some of them, and they're very, very good, I have to say. Like, I never say no to food, as a good Italian. So, and of course, there's Yorkshire tea. Again, to bring my flatmate into the conversation, like, he would be very happy about it. And one time, I was studying in the living room, and I said, I'm gonna make a tea. And he again told me off very badly, because he said, there's no such thing as tea, there's Yorkshire tea. So I was like, okay, sorry, like, I apologize for that. But yeah, like, it's a big part of this land, and I'm looking forward to getting to know more about it. I had the opportunity to visit York. It's a wonderful city, and I'm also looking forward to the opportunity of spending more time in Leeds, because of the pandemic and spending some time home in Italy because of lockdowns. I didn't have the opportunity to see much of the city. So I'm definitely looking forward to, spending more time around the region, and hopefully get to a point at which I'm not telling people that if they are from Huddersfield, they're from Greater Manchester. So, I hope to get better in geography as well.
Yeah, that would be a good place to start. Now, Ricardo, being completely honest, and no one's going to hate on you if you pick what many will perceive as the wrong answer. But if someone said to you, you have to answer this question, just be honest, your Leeds or Manchester as a city to live, what would you go? Which is the better one?
To be completely honest, because I spent, 4 years in Manchester, I basically know almost 100% of the city, everything that relates to the city. So the only reason that I would pick Manchester is because I didn't have, like I said, the chance to visit Leeds properly. So for the time being, I would say Manchester, simply because I'm more aware of what is Manchester. When I have the chance to visit Leeds properly, I'm going to be able to give you, a more complete answer.
Now, listeners won't be able to see this, but our tech man is shaking his head in utter disbelief and disgust at that answer. But you know what? It's a fair point. I have been in Leeds the same amount of time as you, Ricardo, and we really haven't had the opportunity to explore everything the city has to offer, purely because of the current coronavirus situation. But hopefully that will be able to change, and everyone will be able to experience more of Leeds and Yorkshire in general, which we all know is such a varied region in terms of landscape, towns, cities, villages, and things to do.
And I hope that I'm going to be able to be alive, for next time after what I said. So if you want to interview me next time, I hope that I'm going to be one piece. So yeah.
Let's hope some extremely patriotic Yorkshiremen haven't come and hunted you down for that. But I'm sure plenty of people in Manchester will be backing you all the way. You'll be welcome back there with open arms if you get kicked out.
I'm going to seek asylum there, in Manchester.
Yeah. Oh no, that is too funny. Well, okay, based on the limited experience you've had in Yorkshire, and by limited I mean limited by coronavirus, what would you say is the best thing and worst thing about living in Yorkshire?
The worst thing, I think, would be the weather. I'm sorry, but the weather is not very. I'm from Italy, so my standards in terms of weather are, very high.
I'm from Sydney, so I'm with you there.
Yeah,
we both have very different standards. So weather, I would agree with that.
But on the other side, though, when it is sunny, I absolutely love the place, because it's so full of green spaces and parks. And now after coming out of lockdown, with the new season, the good season approaching, it is the perfect time, to spend time outdoors and playing, with the resumption of grassroots sports and stuff as a sport lover. So I, definitely love spending time outside in Horsforth or, neighboring towns when it is sunny. It's perfect. And the best thing, I think, is is something I noticed is, the politeness of people. I think it's something that I'm becoming ever more aware of, and it's something I absolutely love, because anytime that I walk to the supermarket, for example, there's people approaching on the other side of the pavement, and it is instinctive to say hello, good afternoon. It's just, like tiny details, but they make a difference. Like me being an expat, I tend to notice even the tiniest of details, so like this is something I absolutely love. Like people are very polite and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's so noticeable the way just the general public behaves in places like Leeds compared to, say, London, where like if you even look at someone, you go like, don't talk to me, which is each their own. But without a doubt, you do feel that people here just are so warm and friendly, especially in comparison to our friends down south, I would say.
Yeah, I still hope they're gonna say hi after hearing, the Manchester is better. So like,
well, I may have spoken too
I have doubts
soon.
about it.
But speaking of friendliness, we did an online poll on our social media, on our Twitter channel, and we asked listeners which of the following comes to mind first when you think of the word Yorkshireness. And these options we had in the poll were taken straight from the Yorkshire Society's own Yorkshireness survey. We had 4 options: unpretentiousness, Wensleydale cheese, Yorkshire puds, and friendliness. And I can confirm that friendliness did receive the most amount of votes. It received 50%, followed by Yorkshire puddings at 25%, and Wensleydale cheese and unpretentiousness tied on 12.5%. But I do think, Ricardo, that we can all agree that all of those things definitely encompass a large part of what Yorkshireness means to a lot of people. Ricardo, thank you so much for joining us. It's so interesting to get the perspective of someone who has come from Italy to live in Leeds. So thank you for joining us. And that brings us to the conclusion of today's Yorkshire Voice newscast. But fear not, we will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. with a brand new episode, and I will catch you then. Bye.